It was supposed to be the perfect evening. I walked through the door and the aroma of Judy's lasagna hit me like a warm embrace. Judy, I exclaimed, my voice trembling with excitement. I'm absolutely blown away. This is my favorite lasagna. The table was set with candles flickering softly, casting golden hues across the room. It felt like one of those movie scenes where everything aligns perfectly. Romance, food, and anticipation. But as fate would have it, perfection is always just out of reach. Just as we were about to dive into our meal, Judy paused, her fork hovering mid-air, her brow furrowed. Something's missing, she muttered under her breath. Pepper. We need pepper. My heart sank. Pepper? Of all things, why did it have to be pepper? She glanced at me apologetically before rushing toward the door. I'll go borrow some from the neighbors. It'll only take a second. Before I could protest or even process what was happening, the shrill ring of the telephone pierced through the air, shattering the fragile bubble of romance we had built. I hesitated, torn between answering the call and stopping Judy. The phone persisted, its insistent ringing growing louder and more urgent with each passing second. With a sigh, I picked up the receiver. On the other end was a frantic voice, a neighbor pleading for something absurd that I couldn't quite grasp at first. All I knew was that this night, which began so promisingly, was already spiraling into chaos. As I hung up the phone, my mind was still reeling from the absurdity of the neighbor's request. Condoms? In the middle of our romantic evening? The thought alone felt like a cruel joke played by the universe. But before I could process it further, Judy burst back into the room, her face flushed with urgency. I got the pepper, she announced triumphantly, holding up a small container as if she'd just retrieved the Holy Grail. But something about her demeanor seemed off. Her eyes darted away when they met mine, and there was an uncharacteristic tension in her smile. My instincts screamed that something wasn't right. Before I could ask, she blurted out, Oh, honey, I gave the condoms to the neighbor. What? I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. You did what? He needed them more than we do, she said quickly, her voice tinged with defensiveness. He's too young to have kids. Poor guy. He sounded desperate on the phone. Desperate or not, this revelation hit me like a freight train. Young or old, why were we giving away our condoms without discussing it first? And then it dawned on me. Her odd behavior earlier, the rushed exit, the cryptic warnings over the phone. It all connected in a horrifying flash. Judy, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. What exactly did you do to those condoms? She hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. Then, unable to meet my gaze, she confessed, I may have poked tiny holes in them. The room spun. My jaw dropped so low I thought it might hit the floor. You what? I exploded, slamming my palms down on the table. Lasagna plates rattled and the candle flames flickered wildly as if reacting to the chaos unfolding between us. How could you do something so reckless and behind my back? Do you realize what this means? What if he gets someone pregnant because of your tampering? Her face crumpled, guilt washing over her features. I just wanted us to have a baby, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I've been thinking about it for months now. Every time I see couples at the park with their kids, I imagine us doing the same. I couldn't wait anymore. I thought... She trailed off, choking back sobs. You thought wrong, I snapped, pacing the room like a caged animal. This isn't some fairy tale where you can manipulate reality to fit your dreams. People's lives are involved here, including ours. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched taut, broken only by the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. "We'll deal with this mess later," I muttered. "Right now, we need to figure out how to stop him from using those sabotaged condoms." With Judy's confession still ringing in my ears, I reluctantly made my way to the neighbor's house. The evening had already spiraled out of control, and all I wanted was a simple jar of pepper to salvage what remained of our romantic dinner. But as I knocked on the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that this errand would be anything but straightforward. The door creaked open to reveal a disheveled man wearing pajamas 3 sizes too big. His hair stuck out in wild tufts, and his eyes darted around like he was expecting an alien invasion. You're here for pepper?" he asked, gesturing vaguely toward the kitchen. Before I could respond, he launched into an inexplicable rant. "You see," he began, pacing back and forth with the intensity of a conspiracy theorist. "Mercury is retrograde right now, and the moon, is incredibly active. When these celestial bodies align like this, it creates a cosmic energy field that disrupts, well, everything. And if you try to have sex during this time? Oh, disaster. You'll definitely get pregnant. Or worse, something even more chaotic might happen." I blinked at him, utterly baffled. "Look," I said, trying to keep my voice calm despite the rising frustration bubbling inside me. "I just need some pepper. That's all. Can we skip the astrology lesson?" But he wasn't listening. Instead, he grabbed a stack of papers covered in scribbles and charts, shoving them under my nose. "See this?" he demanded, pointing to a diagram that looked like someone had spilled spaghetti sauce on graph paper. "This proves it. If Mercury is in Scorpio and the moon is waxing gibbous, any unprotected intimacy will result in unplanned pregnancies, or possibly twins. Twins, sir." By now, my patience was thinner than rice paper. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to grab him by the shoulders and shake some sense into him. "Listen," I snapped, cutting through his monologue. "I don't care about your lunar cycles or whatever nonsense you're spouting. Just give me the damn pepper so I can go home." He paused mid-sentence, staring at me as though I'd insulted his entire belief system. Then, with exaggerated slowness, he turned and shuffled toward the spice rack. After rummaging around for what felt like an eternity, he finally handed me a small container of black pepper. "Here," he said solemnly. "But remember, avoid sex until Mercury goes direct. Your future self will thank me." As I stormed out of his house, clutching the pepper like a lifeline, I couldn't help but wonder how things had gone so wrong so quickly. What started as a simple trip for seasoning had turned into a crash course in astrological absurdity. And to make matters worse, I knew Judy would have questions when I returned, and not the kind I was prepared to answer. By the time I returned home, clutching the pepper like it was the last relic of sanity in a crumbling world, chaos had already taken over our bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and as I pushed it open, my jaw dropped at the surreal scene before me. It was as if some cosmic prankster had decided to turn our private sanctuary into a circus tent. In the center of the room stood a man wearing nothing but a bathrobe, his hair disheveled and his expression oddly smug. In one hand, he held an enormous bag that rattled suspiciously, condoms spilling out like confetti. "Ah, you're back," he exclaimed, waving the bag triumphantly. "I've brought reinforcements for your predicament." "What predicament? Who are you?" I stammered, stepping further into the madness. Before he could respond, another voice cut through the air, a neighbor I vaguely recognized from down the hall. He was pacing furiously, muttering under his breath about global catastrophes. "Do you realize what's happening here?" he demanded, pointing dramatically at the ceiling. "This isn't just about condoms or babies. It's about saving humanity from overpopulation. Every unplanned pregnancy pushes us closer to extinction." My head spun. Overpopulation? Extinction? This was supposed to be my bedroom, not a dystopian debate club. But the absurdity didn't stop there. From the corner of the room, a stranger emerged, clutching his arm and wincing in pain. His face was red and swollen, and tears streamed down his cheeks. "I got stung by bees," he whimpered. "Climbed a tree to find a hive because I thought it'd make great honey. Now I need comfort, emotional support, anything." "Emotional support?" I exploded, throwing my hands up in exasperation. "What is wrong with all of you? How did this even happen? Why are you in my house?" Judy appeared from somewhere behind the crowd, her face pale with shock. "Honey, I swear I don't know how this happened either," she pleaded, looking as overwhelmed as I felt. But her words were drowned out by the cacophony of voices around us. The man in the bathrobe began lecturing me on safe sex practices, while the population control enthusiast started sketching graphs on a notepad he pulled from thin air. Meanwhile, the bee-stung stranger collapsed onto our bed, sobbing uncontrollably. It was too much. My vision blurred with frustration and disbelief. I grabbed Judy's arm and pulled her aside. "We have to fix this now," I hissed. "Call the police, call a therapist, call whoever can get these people out of our lives." But just as I said it, the front doorbell rang again. Another figure appeared in the doorway, a delivery guy holding a package labeled "emergency supplies." Behind him loomed yet another neighbor, holding a ladder and shouting something about needing to inspect our roof for structural integrity. At that moment, I realized we weren't dealing with ordinary madness. This was a full-blown invasion of bizarre personalities, each convinced they belonged in our lives, or at least in our bedroom. And somehow, amidst all the insanity, Judy managed to whisper, "Maybe we should start by calming everyone down." After what felt like an eternity of chaos, Judy and I finally found ourselves alone in the wreckage of our once peaceful home. The strangers were gone. Some escorted out by force, others fleeing on their own accord. But the air still crackled with tension. Amidst the overturned furniture, scattered condoms, and remnants of lasagna crumbs, we stood facing each other, both exhausted but unwilling to let go of the moment. "Honey," Judy began hesitantly, her voice trembling as she broke the silence. "I think we need to talk." "I think so too," I replied, my tone heavy with resignation. We had dodged asteroids all evening. Mercury retrograde warnings, rogue neighbors, emotional breakdowns. And yet, through it all, one truth emerged. We both wanted a child. But before we could even begin planning for that future, we needed to clean up this mess. Literally and figuratively. The first order of business was the neighbor who'd borrowed the sabotaged condoms. If he used them tonight, there was no telling what might happen. "We can't just leave him like this," I said firmly, pacing the room. "He's probably halfway through some ill-fated rendezvous right now." Judy nodded, her guilt-ridden eyes meeting mine. "You're right. We have to stop him." With renewed determination, we grabbed our coats and bolted out the door, leaving behind the surreal tableau of our invaded bedroom. As we raced down the hallway toward his apartment, every step felt heavier than the last. This wasn't just about saving him. It was about reclaiming control over our lives after a night that had spiraled wildly out of hand. When we reached his door, we knocked frantically, hearts pounding. There was no answer. Just as we debated whether to barge in, the door swung open, not to reveal the young man, but instead another neighbor slumped against the frame, pale and gasping for breath. It was the same guy who'd been ranting earlier about overpopulation. He fainted, Judy cried, rushing to his side. His body crumpled further into her arms, his face ghostly white. Panic surged through me. What now? Call an ambulance? Perform CPR? My mind raced as Judy fumbled for her phone, dialing emergency services. This is insane, I muttered under my breath, running a hand through my hair. One crisis after another. It was like the universe refused to give us a break. Within minutes, the piercing wail of sirens filled the hallway. Paramedics burst onto the scene, hoisting the unconscious man onto a stretcher while asking rapid-fire questions neither of us could fully answer. As the ambulance sped away, its siren blaring into the night, Judy and I exchanged a weary glance. Well, she sighed, leaning into me. At least we tried. Yeah, I agreed, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. But tomorrow we start fresh. No more sabotaged condoms, no more interruptions, just us. And maybe a plan for that baby we've always wanted. Her smile returned, soft and hopeful, as we walked back inside. For the first time that night, the weight on my chest lifted slightly. Despite everything, we had survived, and perhaps in the madness, we'd found something worth fighting for. As the echoes of the ambulance siren faded into the night, an eerie calm settled over our apartment. The chaos that had consumed us for hours finally subsided, leaving behind a strange void, a mix of exhaustion and relief. Judy and I collapsed onto the couch, staring at each other in silence. It was as if we were both waiting for someone to declare, "This has all been a dream." But no such declaration came. Instead, reality hit hard. It hit. So, I began hesitantly, breaking the fragile quiet. What now? My voice sounded foreign even to my own ears, weighed down by everything we'd endured. Judy sighed deeply, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her sweater. I guess we talk about what happens next. Her tone carried a mixture of guilt and determination, the kind that told me she wasn't going to let this disaster go to waste without learning something from it. About having kids? I asked cautiously, though I already knew the answer. Earlier that evening, amidst the madness, we'd discovered something undeniable. We both wanted a child. Yet given the whirlwind of events, the idea felt almost surreal. Yes, she said softly, meeting my gaze with a flicker of hope. But first, we need to make sure tonight doesn't repeat itself. Literally. We can't risk another unplanned pregnancy because of those tampered condoms. The memory of the young neighbor flashed through my mind. The panicked phone call, the sabotaged protection, the sheer absurdity of it all. If he used those condoms, there was every chance his life would change forever. And honestly, that thought terrified me more than anything else that had happened tonight. We'll warn him tomorrow, I said firmly. And while we're at it, maybe we should take precautions ourselves. Let's give the rest of the condoms to someone who actually needs them, like the neighbor on the third floor. Judy raised an eyebrow, amused despite herself. You mean the one who thinks climbing trees to find beehives is a good idea? Exactly, I replied with a wry smile. If nothing else, at least we'll save him from making bad decisions twice in 1 week. Her laughter broke the tension, filling the room with warmth again. For a moment, it felt like things might actually return to normal, or as close to normal as they could get after a night like this. But seriously, I continued, leaning forward, we need a plan, a real one. Not some impulsive scheme involving poked holes or desperate neighbors. She nodded, her expression softening. Agreed. First, we focus on cleaning up this mess, mentally and physically. Then we start preparing for the future. Together. Together. The word hung in the air, grounding us in the shared vision we'd stumbled upon amidst the insanity. Despite everything, the bizarre intrusions, the sabotaged condoms, the near disastrous consequences, we had found clarity, a purpose. By the time morning light filtered through the curtains, we had outlined a rough strategy. Visit the young neighbor early, ensure he understood the risks of using compromised protection, and offer guidance, and perhaps a stern lecture. Afterward, we deliver the remaining condoms to the third-floor neighbor, accompanied by a note reading, "Use wisely," or better yet, "Don't climb any more trees." As the sun rose higher, casting golden hues across our battered living room, Judy turned to me with a mischievous grin. "You know," she teased, "for a couple who almost ruined their romantic dinner, we handled last night pretty well." I chuckled, pulling her closer. "Pretty well? Babe, we survived an invasion, prevented potential disasters, and still managed to agree on starting a family. I'd say we're superheroes." Her laughter echoed through the apartment once more, a sound so pure it drowned out the lingering shadows of the previous night. In that moment, surrounded by remnants of lasagna plates and scattered belongings, we made a silent vow. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. And maybe, just maybe, we'd learn to lock the door next time. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.